Hey guys, it's Kyla at the MJC, and I've got one last video on the marital settlement agreement without minor children. So thank you to all of you guys who have hung in here for this whole time, and I hope that this all has been helpful for you. Before we get going, I want to, as always, just remind you guys that nothing in the video is intended to be legal advice. It's a video, so I'm not able to analyze your specific situation and to let you know whether what you're doing is right for your situation, whether it's in your best interest, whether this is what you ought to be doing. So if you have questions about those sort of things, as always, if you're here in Milwaukee County, you can get free brief legal advice from the Marquette Volunteer Legal Clinics. If you are not located in Milwaukee County, you can contact your clerk of court to find out what resources are available in your area. All right, so the last sections we have here, the first one is the legal name restoration. So legal name restoration is, of course, if one or the other of you changed your name and wants to go back to a former surname. It can be your maiden name or any other last name that you have used before. You can't make up a completely new last name to do it here, but you can restore a previous last name. And it is worth noting, those of you who are doing a legal separation, the court does not or cannot grant you the legal name restoration until the judgment is formally converted to a divorce. So just be aware of that. In this section, you have three options. You can say one, neither party is requesting the right to go back to use a former surname. So this might be because neither of you ever changed your name, or it could be because maybe one of you changed your last name but never ever wants to go back to a former surname. That's fine. It's obviously your choice. Do know that if you check these, you're just asking for the right to use a former surname. So if Jane, let's say she wants the right to go back to her former surname. Let's say that she's been Jane Doe throughout our thing, but let's say that she at one point changed her name to Smith. So she has a driver's license that's in the name Smith, but she's mostly used the name Doe. So we could put Doe here. And you just put the last name that you want to go back to. Again, this is if joint petitioner A wants to go back to a former surname. And note that it just gives you the right to go back to that surname. So this doesn't mean that you absolutely have to, it forces you to. This just means if you decide you want to, you can take this order to the DMV, to the Social Security office, to all those different places, and will be able to change your name. So if you think you might want to change your name down the line, if you go, I don't want to change my name today, but I might want to change my name in the future, then you most likely will want to indicate that you want the right to use a former surname. And so if both of you changed your names and both want to go back, you could check 2 and 3. We find that most commonly it's just one or the other, because typically, the wife changed her name and is looking at going back. But, of course, if in your situation both of you changed your names and you'd both like to go back to a former surname, completely fair. 2 is just if you're doing that for joint petitioner A. 3 is if you're doing it for joint petitioner B. The last bit here, J, is other agreements. So if you have any oral agreements or written agreements that we haven't recodified within this document, you'll want to if it's oral, write it down. If it's written, then you'll want to attach it. So if you have no other agreements, you'll check 1. 1 is saying we don't have any other agreements. This document typed up is now the entirety of our agreement. If you have other agreements, then you'll check 2, and you'll attach those agreements. Keep in mind, this is attaching agreements, so it's not attaching evidence or anything like that. This is just other agreements that you had about your marriage, about dividing your stuff, about all that sort of stuff. But here, John and Jane do not have any other agreements, so we'll check number 1. Here, there is all kinds of statutory language that we do recommend you go ahead and read just to make sure you know what all of this is. You're obviously going to be signing this, so make sure that you understand what's going on here. I'm not going to go through it with you now, but it is something that you want to review to make sure you understand what you guys are agreeing to, because when you're representing yourself, saying I didn't know isn't usually a defense. So the court can assume that you read through this and know what this says. So make sure you have read through it, and if you don't know what's in it, or you don't understand something, again, that'd be a really good thing to get some legal advice about. And then down here, we've reached the bottom. You're just going to fill in everyone's names. So we had Jane, and Jane was Susan Doe, and we're going to put in her address. And it should be the full address, so including the city, state. And she was 206. And then you'll put in email addresses if you have them. If either of you doesn't have an email address, then you can just leave that line blank. And it does, you can see, it makes the spacing weird. I wish I knew how to fix that, but I don't. So, you do your best with what you can. At awesomeschool.edu. And so this line actually should be the telephone number line. So that's what we're going to do here. Sometimes it will put it back in the right place. Other times it won't. So you're just kind of navigating with what it does. Sometimes you can try, see if you can get the spacing to work. There, I at least got it to line up, but it's still not over by that line. So it's kind of where you end up. If you are e-filing these, then you'll put your electronic signature and the date. If you are not e-filing, you can leave those two lines blank and you can sign and date when you print these documents off. And then we'll just fill in the lines for John. And he was John Samuel. Nope, he's Smith. And I'm just going to get his information as well. He was North 1st Street. And that was also Milwaukee. 16. And then we'll put in John's email if we know it. Which again, since you're joint, hopefully you know it since you're both going to be signing and filling these out. And then again, the same weird spacing thing happened here, so we'll just, see, it almost went back up. Same weird spacing thing happened here, so we'll just deal with it. Yeah. And then you have reached the end of this form, unless you needed to do Schedule A. And Schedule A we will cover in the next video. But since I know most people don't need to do Schedule A, thank you to all those of you who made it all the way through this series. I really do hope that this was helpful in helping you all fill out the Part 2 documents. If you need additional help filling out the forms, you can contact the Milwaukee Justice Center. We're located in room G9 of the Milwaukee County Courthouse. And we, at least as of right now, during the COVID pandemic, also have, we have remote services available. So you can check that out if you have additional questions about the forms. If you want to find out if your agreement will be approved or if it's in your best interest or if there's anything like that, again, you can get brief legal advice from the Marquette Volunteer Legal Clinics. All right, well, thank you guys for watching. I hope that it was helpful, and I also hope that you all go out and represent yourselves well.